So, My Hero Academia manga chapter 337 has been released, and let's just say that in this chapter we focus on the UA Traitor being redeemed, as well as a spontaneous face reveal. Yeah, we'll talk about that in this chapter and more, but first we do this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to do my review of My Hero Academia, manga chapter 337, titled A Disposable Tool. And if you're wondering what this disposable tool is, it's referring to most likely the traitor and their family, because of course All For One would consider them disposable because it's in his character to do so. But when it comes to this chapter of My Hero Academia, we once again focus on the UA Traitor, and spoilers if you didn't know who it is Aoyama. And so yeah, we are focusing more on the repercussions and the ramifications of what Aoyama has done. We also get to see a little bit of him reflecting on his decisions and what he has done, and potentially at the end of this chapter, we potentially see that he has been redeemed, ? And I know a lot of people aren't going to be happy with the idea that the traitor has been redeemed in one chapter, but we can see a little bit more for how it happened in this chapter, which is why I'm doing the review for it. So before we get into the actual review, I would like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel. We surpassed 1,000 subscribers, so I really want to see if we can get to the next milestone, which to me would be 5,000. So it would be very helpful if you subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave a like on this video. All right, you've done it? Okay then, let's get right into the review. So, we start the chapter off with All For One, as Dabi is questioning him about, like, wouldn't it be a problem if your friends get found out, which to All For One responds with, meh, doesn't really matter to me. Do you get sad when a $5 lighter stops working? They're just disposable tools to me. If they succeed, that's cool. If they don't, oh well, go on to the next plan, as he's talking about how all that's going to be interesting about this is to see how it plays out, which this entire scene gives us a little bit more to understand about All For One. First of all, it's going to lead to his own downfall. Like, his underestimating of the villains and using people as more of tools instead of like actual people is most likely going to lead to his downfall. As we saw with Star and Stripe, as well as many times in the story, All For One has a tendency to underestimate the heroes, and it normally bites him in the butt, but he's like, that plan failed? Oh well, move on to the next one. And the point that he has so many plans and that they continuously fail, but he always has these backup plans, just shows how much of a schemer he is, but also how much he underestimates the villain, because if he thinks that a plan should work the first time, he should most likely stick to that plan, because having these multiple plans just shows how flawed he is as a character, showing that he has really no remorse, no attachment to the people, and that because he doesn't have that attachment, it could lead to them betraying him in a way that he wouldn't expect, because he just views them as disposable tools. So, most likely what this is showing is that, yeah, All For One is going to be defeated, not necessarily by the heroes, but by his own hubris. And the second thing that we learned about this is that his quote-unquote friends is most likely referring to Aoyama and his family, because, you know, friends is plural, and we do know that Aoyama may be the UA traitor, but his parents were also a part of it, so, you know, that's probably what he means by friends, Aoyama and his parents, and not necessarily more than one traitor in UA. So, cutting from All For One at the beginning of the chapter, we actually cut into the chapter proper with chapter 337, A Disposable Life, where we continue from where we left off last chapter, which is Deku realizing that Aoyama is the traitor, and Aoyama trying to run away, because we see that his parents are trying to grab Aoyama and run away with him, as you have Aoyama just really reflecting on his life in this instance about how his mother and parents came from well-off luxury families, rich families, and how when it comes to the disappointment that they felt, that they may have felt it the most because their child came into a world quirkless, in a world where, for the most part, he should have been guaranteed a quirk. And what's very interesting about this, if you dive into like the aspect of not everyone is created equal, we see that even when Aoyama was pretty much given everything that he may have wanted at a young age, because his parents were rich, he probably didn't really need to ask for much. he would have still faced the same trials and tribulations as Deku, who wasn't born in a family that is rich. His parents are most likely both middle class, and he still had to struggle. And as we saw, his mother was just as disappointed in the fact that he wasn't a quirk user, not necessarily for her, but for him. And the same can be said about Aoyama's parents, which shows that they really do care about Aoyama to the point where they hear rumors about someone giving out quirks, where they take that risk because they realize that in this world, being different is scary, and that even though he got a quirk that was not compatible for his body in reference to Aoyama, his parents still tried their best to accommodate for that. So even though they did this for what seems to be selfish reasons, they did it all so that Aoyama could have a wonderful life. And Aoyama is coming to that realization right now as he's thinking about everything that he's done. He's lived a comfortable life, but since that he now has the quirk, he also had to get orders from All For One, and we get to see what those orders are. We have All For One who's telling Aoyama that he has to get into UA because All Might is going to be a teacher there, that he needs to tell them when the class is going to be isolated. He needed to tell All For One when the training camp is taking place, and that when Midoriya returned to UA, that he had to lure him out and be isolated with him, or to isolate him. And as Aoyama's thinking about all the orders that he was given by All For One, he begins to realize that you have these orders being given to Aoyama, as Aoyama is like, you know, when I realized that you were also quirkless like me, I fell into a state of despair. And as he says this to Deku, we see that Danger Sense activates as we get to see Aoyama firing off his naval laser at Deku as Deku tries to stop it as he goes All For One. And as the laser is about to hit him, Hagakure jumps into the way. And we get sort of a reveal of what her quirk actually is, which is that her body is able to warp light. And this is very interesting because many people just assume that her quirk was invincibility, but no, she's just invisible by warping the light around her, most likely, as she's asking Aoyama, like, hey, you know, we all could have died. Like, we've all been thrown into chaos. All of Japan has been thrown into chaos, and all you did was just sit there in our classroom and lived under our dorms, Aoyama. As weirdly enough, as this is all happening, we get a snapshot of Hagakure's face, and yeah, she's a cute anime girl. Yeah, that should have been expected. Hirokoshi always draws his female students to be very cute, so it makes sense that this is what she looks like, but the real explanation is, how are we seeing her face? And the best explanation that I can give is potentially that she was hit with the quirk laser dead on instead of like it hitting her hands and her actually shaping it, because we see that there are scorch marks on her hand as we see fizzles coming off of her skin. So most likely she didn't just like reflect it with her hands, she actually took the brunt of the attack, warped it herself, and as the light is warping and as the smoke is like in the area, we're able to get sort of like an image or a look at her face. So potentially Aoyama also sees it. Or the second option is that we aren't actually seeing her face within the story, but we're seeing her face from the reader's perspective so that we can see the emotions that she is showing at this moment, which is that she's literally bawling her eyes out as she's condemning Aoyama for everything that he has done. So yeah, we get to see Hagakure's face, which once again, cute anime girl, but as this happens, in that exact moment, as Aoyama's parents try to tell them what's going on, Deku restrains all three of them in an instant and tells them that, yeah, no, we're ending this now. Hagakure prevented you from doing any more harm, so let's just end it, as tears are also streaming from his face, as we immediately cut over to a random classroom where Aoyama is being restrained by the police in front of All Might, Nezu, the other teachers, but more importantly, the other students of Class 1A! Yay! Trauma! So yeah, we have everyone in the classroom restraining them. We also have All Might most likely realizing that Aoyama was also someone who was given a quirk because he was quirkless, and we just see the devastation on his face, which makes sense because he's the one that said, oh yeah, no, there is no traitor in UA. The traitor isn't among the students. They're all heroes. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, he's kind of eating his words right now, as you also have Tsukachi bringing up an important point that Aoyama isn't blowing up at this moment, implying that he doesn't have like the bomb activation on him, where it was very similar to Lady Negan, where she betrayed him and then the bomb went off. He doesn't have a bomb inside of him, which it makes sense. As we see, All For One described him as a disposable $5 lighter, so it just makes sense that he wouldn't have like a type of mechanism in place in the case that he gets caught, because the fact that he doesn't matter if he gets caught or not just shows how much he underestimates Aoyama and his connection with the other heroes. So it makes sense that he wouldn't have a mechanism in place for him because he just didn't care enough. But what is most important about all of this is how the students react to the situation, because for the most part, from what we're getting, all of the students in Class 1A are here, and they all come to our realization that no, there's no way we're gonna leave. Like, we're staying here, as they all begin to realize that, oh, one of our friends is a traitor. Oh no. And they go through like different stages of like acceptance and denial and all of this. Like, Kirishima is just in straight denial. He's like, no, Aoyama, no, this can't be right. This can't be right. This has to be a lie, right? As you even have Ojiro question like, what would have happened if like Hagakure didn't find out about this? Which, you know, shows the connection between Hagakure and Ojiro. So, you know, cool. And then probably the most interesting thing that is said is that as you have Bakugo thinking to himself, yeah, a quirkless child given a quirk by someone else, doesn't that sound familiar? And I know a lot of people have made the joke of like Doofenshmirtz even incorporated with the idea is like, if I had a nickel for every time something happened, I have to have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. And in the case of Bakugo, he will probably have 3 nickels because, you know, All Might. But yeah, it's kind of weird that he was involved in situations involving people who were quirkless that were given a quirk. And the fact that this is something that has happened twice is weird, which could allude to the idea of how really hero society is not the best if it leads kids who want to be heroes to literally resulting to going towards the side of evil to do it. So interesting parallels here. It's like My Hero Academia is all about paralleling different characters like Deku and Aoyama and Deku and Shigaraki and All Might and All For One. It's so great. Parallels everywhere. So yeah, we cut over to Tsukachi questioning Aoyama's father as he's like, yeah, we gotta go through protocol, so, you know, tell us what happens, or tell us all you know about All For One, where his response in reference to Aoyama's father is that, I don't know. We were just following orders, and if we didn't follow the orders, we would be killed. If we lied, we would be killed. As you have Sakachi's like, how do you know this? As we just get this one panel of a body covered in blood, as, yeah, he gave them an example of what happens to people that don't follow his orders. Gave a dead body to Aoyama's father. It's like, hey, if you don't follow my orders, you're going to be sleeping with the fishes. And by sleeping with the fishes, I mean, I'm going to kill you. So even if you go to the police, as soon as you step out of that door, you're going to die. So the father's like, yeah, we didn't want to do this, but like, it doesn't matter what would have happened to us. We would have died. And that we were just following orders. We really had no idea that this was all going to happen. Do not blame Aoyama for any of this. It's our fault as the parent. So this scene is very interesting. We have Aoyama's parents trying to be the scapegoats for Aoyama, saying that they really didn't have a choice in what they did, which, I mean, to be fair, if you had the choice between doing something bad and literally dying, most people probably would prefer doing the bad thing and surviving. So I think what this is showing is that for the most part, what they did was really out of their control. They really didn't have a choice in the matter, and if they did, the choice was literally death. And we've seen how Aoyama treats his own brother, and just imagine how he would treat people that he believes to be disposable tools. So it makes sense that they really didn't have a choice. But what makes the scene even more impactful is what Aoyama says next, because you have Aoyama who talks about how he laughed with everyone and he was hanging out with them, but that when it came to when he learned what Deku was going through, that he thought of himself first, and that's when he realized that he was rotten to the core. And how Aoyama is a villain through and through, which just makes Deku break and come out saying, well, if that was really the case, then why did you save Tokoyami and Kacchan? Why did you leave a letter to me that was a SOS for help? He's just calling Aoyama out. And it's like, if that was really the case, then you're crying right now because you failed All For One. But that's not the case, right? As you have him going on this small rant from Deku as he brings up Lady Nagin about how there was once this certain hero that was controlled by All For One, and that she never really gave up on her actual ideals, and that her spirit of being a hero never ceased. As you have All Might looking at young Midoriya, and as you have Deku thinking about the situation, he says that no one should be named a villain just because they committed a crime, as he thinks about, if I knew earlier, things could have been different. But now, tying into the idea of Deku trying to learn and understand the villains that he's fighting, as he comes out and says that, take my hand, Aoyama-kun, you can be a hero still, or you can still be a hero, as you have Bakugo coming to a conclusion that Deku may have also came to a conclusion about, and we'll talk about what that conclusion is later. But yeah, we end the chapter with a very similar line that Deku gives to Aoyama that All Might gave to him, that he can still be a hero. End of chapter. So yeah, like I said, this chapter primarily focused on potentially Aoyama being redeemed. And from what we've seen with the redemption, and even if it's not being redemption, at the very least him being saved, is that we've seen his situation play out. We got to see like what was going on in his mind during the time that he was betraying the students. He was racked with guilt, but he believed that this was something that he had to do, as seen through his father, where if he didn't do this, they would literally be killed, which, if anything, is a great motivator to show how messed up their hero society is, as well as how messed up All For One is. So we get to see a little bit more of Aoyama just really regretting his decisions, as well as Deku pointing out to Aoyama that even though you believe yourself to be a villain, you've done things that are objectively heroic, saving Tokoyami and Bakugo, like leaving a message that pretty much spelled out that you were the traitor. He did things that were bad and deemed to be villainous, but he also did things that were seen to be heroic. So the point of it is, should Aoyama be deemed the villain for the crimes that he committed? Criminal? Definitely. Villain? I don't think so, and I think that's pretty much what this chapter is trying to tell us. That being a criminal does not inherently mean that you are a villain, which is pretty synonymous in the world of My Hero Academia, where most villains are criminals and most criminals are perceived to be villains. But then you have examples, primarily Gentle Criminal, who is objectively a criminal, but he hasn't really done things that are really like villainous. Like, he has done very small and petty things, but nothing really on the scale of being a villain. And I think that's the point of what the story is trying to show, that actions that you take should not truly dictate who you are as a person and how you should live your life, because this is coming from a manga from a country that has a very, very high conviction rate. So it makes sense that this is a type of ideal that is being expressed, that you can change even if you've done wrong. You can still be saved if you're willing to help. If someone is willing to lend a helping hand, it is your choice to take that hand and to change yourself. And that's what we're seeing in this chapter. We're seeing that Aoyama is regretful, that he hates that the decisions that he made, but that because he's being shown this remorse and being given a second chance, it's most likely than not he's going to take it, because the people see in him that he is actually a good person, even with what he has done. Which is very important, because we have multiple characters who have done multiple crimes that are deemed villains immediately, but they were never given a second chance or a helping hand to turn that around. They were immediately ostracized as villains and turned to villainy as a result. Twice. Toga. So I think what we're going to be seeing in the next chapter is that most likely Aoyama is going to be saved, and what Bakugo is thinking that Deku is going to do is use Aoyama as sort of a scapegoat, because they know for a fact that he's not being heavily monitored by All For One. But I think that most likely what's going to happen is that they're going to use the fact that Aoyama is a traitor and use that to their advantage. Trick the villains into heading towards a certain location, or saying that Deku is about to leave UA on this day, so come and fight, and that that's going to be when the heroes are going to strike. They now have an advantage that they didn't have prior, which could be used to their advantage so that they can be the ones to make the first strike, which is Aoyama being a traitor. So it makes sense for why this reveal is done now, because up until this moment, they really didn't have an edge whatsoever over the villains, but now they do, and now they're going to once again be able to make the first strike. And I think that is sort of the underlining thing that Bakugo sees that Deku may be doing, whether intentional or not. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the chapter for now. I'll probably go a little bit more into like Aoyama's decision and whether or not he's a villain or a hero in a later video, but this is all I really have to say for the review. I really did enjoy this chapter. I thought this was a very emotional chapter. We got to see more of Aoyama's backstory, get to see his perspective of everything that occurred, and have a lot of things connect to the overarching themes of My Hero Academia when it comes to choice, when it comes to what makes a hero, and if heroes or villains deserve a second chance at being a hero. So we got to see a lot of that in here, a lot of different parallels, as well as we got to see the reactions of Class 1A coming to the realization that they have a traitor amongst their midst, and we got to see different reactions to it. But I think most likely what's going to happen is that they're eventually, most likely, maybe not immediately, they're going to come around to Aoyama. Maybe some of the characters in Class 1A may not fully trust him, but I think that it's going to be very tedious. But I think that Hirokoshi can do a good job at this. We just have to wait to see. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about this chapter. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you liked it. And if you did, why not leave a like on this video and leave a comment down below on what you thought of the chapter. Do you like the idea that Aoyama is pretty much saved in this chapter, or do you think that it needs a little bit more time? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below, as well as subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified for whenever I upload more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!